The HR director and my boss stood in my cubicle doorway, arms crossed. Karen from HR held a manila folder thick with printouts. My manager, Douglas, wouldn't meet my eyes. "We've been monitoring your computer activity," Karen said, her voice sharp as glass. "You've been working on a side hustle during office hours. That's theft of company time and resources. You're terminated, effective immediately." I didn't deny it. I just smiled and said, "You got me." They had no idea my side hustle was compiling evidence of $30 million in securities fraud. Karen's jaw tightened at my smile. She clearly expected tears, denials, maybe some begging. Instead, I sat there calm as Sunday morning, hands folded on my desk. "Your badge, laptop, and phone. Now." She thrust out her hand, palm up, like she was dealing with a teenager who'd broken curfew. I unplugged my work laptop, closed it, and handed it over. The badge came off my lanyard with a soft click. My work phone, a basic model I barely used, joined the pile in her arms. Douglas finally spoke, his voice quiet. "Shelley, I'm sorry it came to this." Was he, though? I looked at him. This man I'd worked under for 3 years, who'd praised my quarterly reports and recommended me for projects. Now he couldn't even hold eye contact. "Are you?" I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Karen pulled papers from her folder, spreading them on my desk like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "We have screenshots of your activity, timestamps showing you accessed unauthorized websites, hours spent on non-work-related activities." She tapped one printout with a manicured nail. "You've been running some kind of online business. We have images of spreadsheets, financial documents, email drafts. This is a clear violation of your employment contract. Section 4, Paragraph 2. I glanced at the screenshots. They showed exactly what I knew they would. My personal email, Excel files, documents that had nothing to do with my assigned projects. From their perspective, it looked damning. "I'd like to collect my personal items," I said, gesturing to the framed photo of my mother, the coffee mug I'd brought from home, the small succulent plant on my desk. "Everything will be shipped to you. We need you out now." Karen's tone left no room for negotiation. A security guard appeared behind them. Travis, a nice guy who always said good morning, now looking uncomfortable in his Navy uniform. "Ma'am, I'll need to escort you out." The walk through the office felt like that dream where you show up to school naked. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads popped up over cubicle walls. My coworker Amanda stood frozen by the printer, her mouth forming a perfect O of shock. I tried to catch her eye, but she looked away. Tyler, a junior analyst who'd always resented me, didn't bother hiding his smirk. He actually leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, watching my humiliation like it was prime-time entertainment. We passed through the finance department. The room fell silent except for the hum of computers and the distant ring of phones. I caught a glimpse through the glass walls into the trading floor. Dozens of screens flickering with numbers. Traders bent over keyboards. Meridian Financial Consulting advised hedge funds and managed investment portfolios. Big money, powerful clients. And under all that legitimate business, a scheme that had stolen millions. Senior VP, Craig Holloway, watched from his corner office, all glass and chrome. His expression was stone. He knew. Of course he knew. He'd probably ordered this entire performance. In the lobby, Karen handed me a folder. "Your termination letter and separation agreement. You'll receive 2 weeks severance if you agree not to disparage the company and waive your right to sue." I read through it carefully. Standard corporate language wrapped around threats, non-disparagement clause, confidentiality agreement, a promise to stay silent about everything I'd seen and done here. "You have 24 hours to sign," Karen said. "No signature, no severance." I folded the papers, slid them into my purse. "I'll think about it." Her face flushed red. "There's nothing to think about. You stole from this company, Shelley. You should be grateful we're not pressing criminal charges." "I didn't steal anything." I kept my voice level. "But you're right about one thing. I have been very busy." I pushed through the revolving door into the Chicago afternoon. September air, crisp and clean, hit my face. Behind me, the glass tower of Meridian Financial reflected the autumn sun, all light and shine and respectability. My personal phone buzzed in my pocket. Text from an unknown number. "Package delivered. M.S." My heart jumped. Monica Shaw. Sex Special Agent. Monica Shaw. Which meant my 50-page whistleblower report, complete with financial records, emails, and trading data proving a massive front-running scheme, had just been formally received by the Securities and Exchange Commission's Enforcement Division. I walked across the street to a coffee shop, one of those chains with overpriced espresso and uncomfortable chairs, ordered a double shot, found a table by the window where I could see Meridian's entrance. The SEC had a 2-hour window to review urgent fraud claims before they had to decide whether to act. I knew this because I'd spent 6 months researching every detail of the whistleblower process. I checked my watch. 2:13 in the afternoon. I gave them until 4:15. My hands shook slightly as I lifted the tiny cup. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from the knowledge that everything I'd worked toward for half a year was finally in motion. 6 months ago, I'd been preparing a routine quarterly report when I noticed something odd. Client account statements showed trades executed at times that didn't match the official records. Small discrepancies, easy to miss. But once I saw the pattern, I couldn't unsee it. Trades recorded at impossible times, profits that appeared, then disappeared. Client orders fulfilled at prices that seemed just slightly off. I'd started documenting everything. Screenshots on my phone during bathroom breaks. Emails forwarded to my personal account from my work phone before I deleted the sent messages. Late nights in the file room, photographing paper trails with my camera, making sure the flash was off. The fraud was elegant in its simplicity. Meridian was front-running. They'd see a client's order, use that information to make trades for company accounts first, then execute the client order. The profit margin was thin on each trade, but multiply it across thousands of transactions over 3 years, and it added up to approximately $30 million. Craig Holloway orchestrated it. Janet Sterling, the compliance officer, made sure no one inside the company caught on. They'd built themselves a beautiful machine for stealing from the people who trusted them, and now the SEC knew everything. My coffee went cold while I waited. I watched people stream in and out of Meridian's building. Normal workday. Nobody inside knew what was about to hit them. My phone rang at 4:12. Blocked number. Shelley Grant? A woman's voice, professional and sharp. Speaking. "This is Special Agent Monica Shaw from the SEC's Enforcement Division. We've reviewed your submission. We need to meet tonight." I exhaled slowly. "You're moving forward?" "We're initiating an emergency investigation. Trading halt goes into effect at market open tomorrow. But we need your testimony, and we need to talk about your safety." My stomach dropped. "My safety? Miss Grant, this is a significant case. 30 million in documented fraud. Multiple executives implicated. These people will figure out who blew the whistle, if they haven't already. Can you meet me at our Chicago field office in 1 hour? I agreed, got the address, hung up. Safety. I hadn't let myself think too much about that part. I'd been so focused on collecting evidence, on building an airtight case, that I'd pushed aside thoughts of what came after. The SEC office was downtown, a government building that looked exactly like every government building. Concrete, security checkpoints, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly ill. Monica Shaw met me in a conference room. She was maybe 55, gray hair pulled back, wearing a suit that had seen better days, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Another investigator sat beside her, a man in his 40s who introduced himself as Robert Hayes. "Your report is extremely thorough," Monica said, spreading printouts across the table. "My evidence, now official government documents. You've essentially done half our investigation for us. I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed. How long have you been collecting this information?" 6 months. Since I first noticed the discrepancies. Robert leaned forward. "Why didn't you report it to company compliance?" Janet Sterling is the compliance officer. She's part of it. I have emails showing she authorized false reporting to cover the trades. Monica nodded. "We saw those. Here's what happens next. Tomorrow morning, we're issuing an emergency trading halt on Meridian Financial. We'll execute search warrants at their offices. We'll seize computers, files, everything. The company will issue a statement. Media will cover it. And everyone inside will be looking for who reported them." I covered my tracks. They won't know it was me. Robert and Monica exchanged glances. "You were fired today," Robert said gently, "for allegedly working on a side project during office hours. That's an unusual coincidence." My confidence wavered. They said they'd been monitoring my computer. They had screenshots of me accessing files, working on spreadsheets that weren't related to my job. "Which means they were watching you," Monica said. "The question is, for how long, and what did they see?" We spent 2 hours going through everything. They recorded my statement, asked detailed questions about each piece of evidence. Monica explained the whistleblower process, the timeline, the potential rewards under the Dodd-Frank Act. "If we recover sanctions, you're entitled to 10 to 30%, she said. "In a case this size, that's substantial money." I hadn't done this for money, but I wasn't going to pretend it wouldn't help. I had student loans, rent, a car payment. My salary at Meridian had been decent, but not generous. "Have you signed their separation agreement?" Monica asked. "Not yet. I have until tomorrow." "Don't sign it. That non-disparagement clause could complicate your whistleblower status. Federal law protects you, but corporate agreements can create gray areas. Better to avoid it entirely. They'll know I'm not cooperating. They'll know you're not going away quietly," Robert said. "Which means they'll know you're dangerous." Monica's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. "We have a problem." She turned her phone so I could see the screen. An alert from a legal database. "Meridian just filed an emergency lawsuit against you 30 minutes ago. They're claiming you stole proprietary information, and they're seeking an immediate restraining order to prevent you from disclosing company secrets." The room tilted slightly. "How is that possible? I just got fired 3 hours ago." Robert pulled out his tablet, typed quickly. "Filed at 5:37. Your termination was at 2. They moved incredibly fast. This lawsuit was prepared in advance. The implications hit me like cold water. They knew. Before they fired me, they knew I was collecting evidence." Monica nodded slowly. "Which means they've been planning this response. And if they filed this lawsuit this quickly, They know you're the whistleblower. My hands felt numb. How? That's what we need to figure out. But right now, you need to understand something. Monica's voice was serious. These people have unlimited resources. They will come after you with everything they have. Legally, financially, professionally, personally, and they've already started. I woke at 7:30 to my phone exploding with notifications. News alerts, text messages, calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Meridian Financial Consulting Trading, suspended by SEC, pending fraud investigation. It was happening, really happening. More headlines loaded. Federal agents raid Chicago financial firm. 30 million fraud scheme alleged. Senior executives under investigation. My phone rang. Amanda, my work friend. Shelley, what is happening? The office is complete chaos. Federal agents showed up at 6 this morning. They're going through everything. Craig Holloway was walked out in handcuffs. His face was on the news. Did you see? I hadn't. I pulled up a news site on my laptop. There he was, Craig in his expensive suit, hands cuffed behind his back, agents on either side. His expression was fury mixed with disbelief, like he couldn't comprehend that consequences had finally found him. Amanda, listen to me carefully. You need to stay away from me. Don't contact me again. I'm sorry, but you'll understand soon. Wait, Shelley, did you? I hung up. It hurt, cutting off one of the few genuine friendships I'd had at work. But Monica had been clear. Anyone connected to me would be questioned, investigated, potentially targeted. At 8:45, a courier knocked on my apartment door. Legal papers, thick as a phone book. Meridian Financial Consulting. Faye Shelley Grant. I sat on my couch and read. The language was dense, aggressive, designed to intimidate. They claimed I'd violated my employment contract by accessing confidential information outside my job scope. Stolen trade secrets. Breached confidentiality agreements. Caused irreparable harm to the company's reputation and business relationships. They were seeking $5 million in damages. $5 million. A number so large it stopped meaning anything. I made $62,000 a year. I had maybe $12,000 in savings. $5 million might as well have been $5 billion. The law firm name jumped out at me. Preston and Associates. I knew that name. Everyone in Chicago business circles knew it. Theodore Preston, legendary corporate defense attorney. The man who'd successfully defended 3 Fortune 500 companies against fraud charges, who'd destroyed whistleblowers and made them disappear from their industries entirely. Emergency hearing scheduled for Thursday, 2 days away. I called Monica Shaw. We expected this, she said, though she sounded tired. They're trying to intimidate you into silence. But here's the problem, Shelley. You need a lawyer, a good one. And whistleblower defense is expensive. Very expensive. How expensive? For a case like this, against Preston and Associates, minimum $200,000, could go over $1 million if it drags on. My $12,000 in savings suddenly felt like pocket change. There are whistleblower protection organizations, Monica continued. They provide legal aid, but they need time to evaluate cases, assign lawyers. We're talking weeks, maybe months. Your hearing is in 2 days. I sat in silence, processing. I'm sorry, Monica said softly. The system is supposed to protect people like you. But the reality is that companies have more resources, more time, and they use them to crush anyone who speaks up. After we hung up, I stared at my apartment. 1 bedroom, nothing fancy, but it was mine. My car, a 10-year-old sedan, was parked outside. I had a job, a life, a future. Had, Past tense now. By noon, news vans appeared outside my building. Somehow, reporters had identified me as a former Meridian employee fired the day before the SEC announcement. They were connecting dots. My phone rang constantly. Reporters requesting interviews. I ignored them all. At 2, I made the mistake of checking social media. My name was there, trending locally. People were sharing my LinkedIn profile, my college information, photos from my Facebook before I'd made it private. The narrative was forming. Some called me a hero. Others called me a disgruntled ex-employee seeking revenge. Tyler, my smirking coworker, had given a statement to a local news station. She was always resentful, he said, looking earnest and concerned. She felt underappreciated. She complained a lot. This feels like revenge because she got fired. Never mind that I documented crimes. Never mind the $30 million stolen from clients. The story they were telling was simpler. Bitter woman, fired for cause, makes false accusations to hurt former employer. Meridian released an official statement. A disgruntled former employee, terminated for cause for theft of company time and resources, has made baseless allegations in retaliation for her dismissal. We will vigorously defend our reputation and hold this individual accountable for her malicious actions. We have full confidence that the truth will prevail. Theft of company time. That was going to be their angle. I was the thief, not them. My phone rang again. My mother, Catherine, calling from Ohio. Mom, hi. Shelley, honey. Her voice was shaking. There are men at my house. They say they're process servers. They're trying to serve me with some kind of subpoena. They're asking about your finances, whether I gave you money, whether I have any of your documents stored here. Sweetheart, what's happening? My vision narrowed. They were going after my mother. My 63-year-old mother who lived in a small town in Ohio and had nothing to do with any of this. Mom, don't answer their questions. Don't let them in your house. Call a lawyer if they won't leave. A lawyer? Shelley, I can't afford a lawyer. What is this about? I couldn't tell her everything. Not yet. Not over the phone while strangers were probably listening outside her door. I'll explain soon. I promise. Just don't talk to them. After I hung up, my email pinged. Message from Preston and Associates. Miss Grant, given your current financial situation and the serious allegations against you, I suggest we speak before Thursday's hearing. You cannot win this fight. My clients have unlimited resources and the best legal team in Chicago. You have, from what I understand, less than $15,000 in savings and no legal representation. However, if you recant your SEC statement and publicly apologize for making false accusations, my clients are prepared to drop the lawsuit and offer you a settlement of $50,000. You have 12 hours to decide. Otherwise, we will pursue damages that will bankrupt you and destroy your family. The choice is yours. Theodore Preston, Managing Partner. I read it 3 times. $50,000, more than my annual salary. Enough to pay off my car, my student loans, have something left over to rebuild my life. All I had to do was lie, say I made it all up. Let $30 million in fraud disappear. Let them win. I sat in my dark apartment, lights off, staring at the email. 12 hours to decide. At 11 at night, my phone rang. My landlord, George. Shelley, I received a call today from a law firm. They were asking questions about your lease, your rent payment history, whether you've had any financial difficulties. I don't know what's going on, but I don't want any trouble. I'm going to need you to move out when your lease ends next month. George, you can't just. Your lease expires November 1st. That's 4 weeks. I'm not renewing. I want you out." He hung up before I could respond. I sat there, phone in my hand, feeling everything crumble. At 11:30, my bank called. A recorded message, then a representative named David. "Miss Grant, this is David from First National. We're calling about your accounts. We've received a court order to freeze your checking and savings accounts pending the outcome of litigation. Effective immediately, you cannot access your funds." "You froze my accounts? How am I supposed to pay rent? Buy food?" "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's a court order. We have no choice." I checked my wallet after hanging up. $67 in cash. 3 credit cards, all close to maxed from previous expenses. $67. I called Monica Shaw. It was nearly midnight, but she answered. "They're destroying my life." My voice cracked. "They froze my bank accounts. My landlord is evicting me. They're harassing my mother. I can't fight this. I don't have the resources." "Shelley, this is what they do. They have unlimited money, and they use it to crush anyone who threatens them. But you're protected under federal law. Federal law doesn't pay my rent. It doesn't unfreeze my bank accounts. Monica, I'm going to lose everything." Silence on the other end. "If you recant, they win. $30 million in fraud just disappears. They'll do this to the next person who figures it out, and the person after that. That's not my responsibility. I can't sacrifice my entire life for this. I know it feels that way right now. It doesn't feel that way. It is that way. I'm about to be homeless. I have $67. Preston offered me $50,000 to make this go away. That's more money than I've ever had at one time." Long pause. "I understand," Monica said quietly. "I'm sorry we couldn't protect you better. Whatever you decide, I won't judge you." After I hung up, I opened my laptop, pulled up the email from Preston, started typing a response. "Mr. Preston, I accept your offer." Before I could finish, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was past midnight. I looked through the peephole. A woman I didn't recognize stood there. Professional-looking, maybe early 40s, holding a briefcase. She held up an ID badge. I opened the door with the chain still on. "Miss Grant? My name is Diana Wolfe. I'm a partner at the law firm Wolfe & Associates. I specialize in whistleblower cases. May I come in? I can't afford a lawyer. I'm not asking for payment. I work on contingency for whistleblower cases. If you win, I take a percentage of your reward. If you lose, you owe me nothing." I stared at her, trying to process this. "Why would you take that risk?" "Because I believe in what you're doing, and because I have personal reasons. Can I come in?" I let her in. My apartment was a mess. Boxes half-packed because I was already thinking about moving. Papers spread across the coffee table. The stress of the last 2 days written across every surface. Diana sat on my couch, opened her briefcase. She was calm, collected, like midnight visits to desperate whistleblowers were routine for her. "I've been following your case. What Meridian is doing to you is illegal retaliation. We can fight this. They have Preston and Associates. They have unlimited money. My bank accounts are frozen. My landlord is evicting me. They're going after my mother. How do I fight that?" "I know. I've seen it before." She pulled out documents. Legal files, thick with paper. 3 years ago, I represented another Meridian whistleblower. Her name was Jennifer Harris. She tried to report accounting fraud at the company. Meridian destroyed her. They sued her, froze her assets, got her blacklisted in the financial industry. She eventually dropped her case and disappeared. I haven't been able to find her since. My stomach sank. That's supposed to make me feel better? Jennifer's case was smaller. A few million in questionable accounting. But before she vanished, she left me something. A hard drive with files she'd collected over 2 years. Evidence of fraud, patterns of behavior, internal communications. I've kept them all this time, waiting for another whistleblower to come forward. She pulled out a tablet, showed me files, emails, spreadsheets, trading records. Your case, plus Jennifer's evidence? We can prove a pattern of fraud and retaliation going back 5 years. We can show this is institutional behavior, not isolated incidents. And that changes everything. I looked at the documents. Jennifer's story was heartbreaking. A woman who'd tried to do the right thing and been crushed for it. The hearing is tomorrow morning. We have less than 12 hours to prepare. Diana smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting for this fight. Then we'd better get to work. I looked at my laptop, at the unsent email to Preston. I highlighted the text. I accept your offer. Deleted it. Let's take them down. We worked through the night. Diana brought in her associate, a young lawyer named Grace Palmer, who showed up at 1 a.m. with coffee and determination. They went through every piece of evidence, every document, building our defense. Here's what we're going to argue, Diana said around 3 a.m. Your actions fall squarely under whistleblower protection. You documented crimes, not stole secrets. The timing of your termination and their lawsuit proves retaliation. And Jennifer's case establishes a pattern. Will the judge allow Jennifer's evidence? It's from a different case. It goes to pattern and practice. They can argue relevance, but I think we have a shot. Grace looked up from her laptop. I found something. Look at this. The lawyer who represented Meridian in Jennifer's case 3 years ago? She turned her screen. Theodore Preston. He knows their playbook because he wrote it, Diana said. He helped them destroy Jennifer. Now he's doing it to you. But this time, we know what's coming. By 6 a.m., we had a strategy. By 7, we had our documents prepared. By 8, we were walking into the federal courthouse. I hadn't slept. I was running on coffee and adrenaline and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, the system would work this time. The courthouse was old, all marble and wood and the weight of history. We passed through security, our footsteps echoing in the high-ceilinged halls. Outside, media had gathered. Cameras, reporters, the circus I was now part of, whether I wanted to be or not. Theodore Preston stood in the hallway outside the courtroom with 4 associates, all in suits that probably cost more than my car. They had wheeled carts stacked with document boxes. The visual alone was intimidating. We had 3 boxes. Preston was in his 60s, silver hair, commanding presence. He looked at Diana and smiled. Not friendly, predatory. Diana, still taking hopeless cases. I see. Theodore, still destroying innocent people for money, I see. His smile didn't waver. See you inside. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, judge's bench elevated above us, the seal of the United States watching from the wall. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. I'd looked her up last night, 62 years old, appointed by a Republican president, known for being tough but fair, former prosecutor. She didn't suffer nonsense from either side. She took the bench at 9 sharp. Good morning. I've reviewed the preliminary filings in this matter. Mr. Preston, you filed an emergency motion for preliminary injunction and damages. Proceed. Preston stood. When he spoke, his voice filled the room with confidence and authority. "Thank you, Your Honor. This is a straightforward case of employee theft and corporate espionage. Miss Shelley Grant was employed by Meridian Financial Consulting as a financial analyst. She violated her employment contract by accessing confidential proprietary information outside the scope of her job. She forwarded this information to her personal email accounts. She photographed internal documents. She compiled this information into a report and submitted it to federal regulators in an act of revenge after being terminated for theft of company time. His presentation was polished, devastating. He had slides, charts, timelines, screenshots of my computer activity, logs showing when I'd accessed files that weren't part of my assigned projects. Your Honor, my client's reputation has been catastrophically damaged. Trading in their stock has been halted. Federal agents raided their offices. Clients are abandoning them. All because a disgruntled employee, angry about being fired, made baseless allegations. He called Karen, the HR director, to testify. She took the stand looking every bit the professional. Her testimony was rehearsed, probably coached by Preston's team. Miss Grant had a pattern of complaints. She felt underappreciated, passed over for promotion. Her performance had declined over the last 6 months. She seemed resentful and distracted. When we discovered she was using company time and resources for personal projects, we had no choice but to terminate her. Douglas, my former manager, testified next. He looked uncomfortable but said what they needed him to say. Shelley's work had become erratic. She missed deadlines. The quality of her reports decreased. She seemed to be focusing on things outside her job scope. I tried to counsel her, but she was resistant. They painted a picture of a troubled employee who'd been fired for legitimate reasons and lashed out in revenge. Preston rested after an hour. Judge Morrison looked at Diana. "Miss Wolfe?" Diana stood. She didn't have Preston's theatrical presence, but she had something else. Quiet confidence. The sense that she knew exactly what she was doing. Your Honor, Mr. Preston is correct that Miss Grant accessed files outside her immediate job scope, that she forwarded documents to personal accounts, that she compiled a report for the SEC. But context matters. Let me explain why. She presented my evidence, the trading discrepancies, the impossible timestamps, the profits that appeared and vanished, the mathematical impossibility of the reported transactions. Miss Grant didn't steal secrets. She documented crimes. She did exactly what any ethical employee should do when they discover fraud. She compiled evidence and reported it to the appropriate authorities. She walked through the front-running scheme, showed how Meridian had stolen approximately $30 million over 3 years, explained how Craig Holloway and Janet Sterling had orchestrated it. Preston objected. Your Honor, this is a civil case about employment contract violations, not a criminal trial about alleged fraud. Judge Morrison studied the documents Diana had submitted. Overruled. The context of Miss Grant's actions is relevant to whether they constitute wrongdoing or protected whistleblowing. Continue Miss Grant's actions. Wolfe. Diana presented the whistleblower protection statutes. Federal law explicitly protected employees who reported securities fraud. My actions weren't just legal. They were exactly what the law encouraged. Then she brought out Jennifer's files. Your Honor, this isn't Meridian's first time retaliating against a whistleblower. 3 years ago, a woman named Jennifer Harris worked at Meridian. She discovered accounting irregularities and tried to report them. Meridian used the exact same playbook against her. They sued her, froze her assets, harassed her family, destroyed her professionally, and forced her into silence. She submitted Jennifer's evidence, emails, trading records, patterns that matched my findings almost exactly. This is institutional behavior. Meridian has a documented history of committing fraud and crushing anyone who tries to expose it. Preston was on his feet. Objection. This is highly prejudicial and completely irrelevant to the current case. Miss Harris's alleged claims are from 3 years ago, were never proven, and she withdrew her complaint. She withdrew because you destroyed her, Diana said calmly. Because Meridian, with your help, made it impossible for her to continue fighting. Judge Morrison studied the Jennifer Harris files for several minutes. The courtroom was silent, except for the clock ticking on the wall. I'll allow it. This speaks to pattern and practice. Mr. Preston, you may respond in your rebuttal. Diana called me to the stand. My hands shook as I was sworn in. The courtroom suddenly felt enormous, all eyes on me. Diana asked me to describe how I'd discovered the fraud. I told the story, the quarterly report, the discrepancies, the growing realization that something was very wrong. Why didn't you report it to company compliance? Janet Sterling is the compliance officer. I had evidence showing she was part of the scheme. There was no internal recourse. Why did you go to the SEC? Because $30 million had been stolen from clients who trusted this company with their money. Because it was wrong. Because I couldn't stay silent. Did you know what would happen to you? I looked at the judge. I knew they would come after me. I'd heard rumors about Jennifer Harris, about what happened to her. But I hoped that if I built a strong enough case, if I had enough evidence, that the truth would protect me. My voice cracked on the last words. Preston's cross-examination was brutal. Miss Grant, isn't it true you were angry about being passed over for promotion? I was disappointed, but yes or no, please. Yes. Isn't it true you complained multiple times about your compensation? I felt I was underpaid for my experience level. Yes. Isn't it true you could have reported your concerns internally instead of going directly to federal regulators? The compliance officer was part of the fraud. There was no. Yes or no? Could you have reported it internally? Not effectively, no. So that's a yes, you could have, but chose not to. You chose to go outside the company with confidential information. He was twisting everything, making my reasonable actions sound suspicious. And isn't it true, Miss Grant, that you have no direct proof that Janet Sterling was involved in any fraud? I hesitated. The emails I had were suggestive, but not explicit. I have emails that show she authorized false reporting, but no direct admission of fraud, no smoking gun, just your interpretation of ambiguous communications. The pattern is clear. To you, perhaps, but that's the point, isn't it? You made assumptions, drew conclusions, and then, after being fired, you weaponized those assumptions against your former employer. I wanted to scream. Everything he was saying was wrong, but he was doing it so skillfully that it almost sounded reasonable. Diana's redirect was quick. Miss Grant, do you have any reason to lie about what you discovered? No. Do you benefit personally from Meridian being investigated? I've lost my job, my savings are frozen, my landlord is evicting me, and I'm being sued for $5 million. I'd say I'm not benefiting at all. So why did you report this? Because it was the right thing to do. After I stepped down, Diana said, Your Honor, we have one more piece of evidence. She pulled out her phone, connected it to the courtroom's audio system. This is a recording made by Miss Grant 3 months ago in Meridian's file room. The recording played. Voices, slightly muffled, but clear enough. Craig Holloway, the Harris situation taught us something. If another employee figures this out, we act immediately. We destroy them before they can talk. Legal, financial, personal. Scorched earth. Janet Sterling. And we've tightened our monitoring systems. If someone starts accessing files they shouldn't, we'll catch them faster next time. Craig. Good. We can't afford another whistleblower. Not with the money we've moved. Janet. Don't worry. We have the system locked down. And Preston knows exactly what to do if someone does slip through. The courtroom erupted. Preston's face went from confident to pale in seconds. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order! Order in this court! Diana turned to the judge. Your Honor, this recording proves Meridian knew they were committing fraud, knew they had retaliated against Jennifer Harris, and had actively planned to retaliate against any future whistleblowers. This lawsuit isn't about protecting trade secrets. It's about silencing a witness to crimes. Preston found his voice. Your Honor, that recording was obtained illegally. It's inadmissible. She recorded a conversation she was present for in a one-party consent state, Diana countered. Completely legal, and completely devastating to your case. Judge Morrison held up her hand. 30-minute recess. Mr. Preston, I suggest you speak with your clients. Miss Wolfe, well played. The hallway was chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Preston huddled with his associates and 2 Meridian board members who'd shown up for the hearing. Diana pulled me into a small conference room. That recording was brilliant. Why didn't you mention it before? You didn't ask. I've been documenting everything for 6 months. I have hours of recordings. She laughed, shook her head. You're either very smart or very paranoid. Can't it be both? Preston knocked on our door 10 minutes later. Diana. Miss Grant. May I speak with you? His confidence was cracked. Not broken, but damaged. My clients are willing to settle. They'll drop the lawsuit and pay Miss Grant $100,000. In exchange, she recants her SEC testimony and signs a comprehensive NDA. Absolutely not, Diana said immediately. $250,000. Final offer. I looked at Diana. $250,000 would change my life. Would solve every immediate problem. Diana shook her head slightly. They're panicking. That recording changed everything. We hold? You're making a mistake, Preston said. Even if you win this preliminary injunction hearing, the SEC investigation could take years. Miss Grant will be unemployable, marked as a troublemaker. $250,000 in cash, right now, and she can rebuild her life. I spoke before Diana could. 3 years ago, you helped Meridian destroy Jennifer Harris. You used these exact tactics: lawsuit, frozen assets, character assassination. You're not offering me a settlement because you want to be generous. You're offering it because you're terrified of what else I might have. Preston's eyes narrowed. You're playing a very dangerous game, Miss Grant. Diana pulled out her phone, tapped record. Is that a threat? Because we're recording this conversation. Preston stepped back, adjusted his tie. I'll see you back in court. After he left, my hands were shaking. Did I just make a huge mistake? That was a lot of money. That was a desperate offer from people who know they're losing, Diana said. Trust me. Back in the courtroom, Judge Morrison took the bench. I've reviewed all the evidence presented today. Mr. Preston, does your client wish to continue with this motion? Preston stood. Your Honor, in light of new considerations, my clients move to dismiss their lawsuit without prejudice. No. Judge Morrison's voice was firm. I'm dismissing this lawsuit with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. Furthermore, I'm awarding Miss grant attorneys' fees, and sanctioning Meridian Financial Consulting for bringing a frivolous lawsuit in bad faith. The sanctions will be $50,000, payable to Miss Grant within 30 days. She wasn't done. I'm also lifting the freeze on Miss Grant's bank accounts effective immediately, and I'm issuing a protective order. Meridian and its representatives are prohibited from contacting Miss Grant, her family, her employer, or her landlord. Any violation will result in contempt charges. She looked directly at me. Miss Grant, what you did took courage. This system is supposed to protect people like you. I'm sorry it failed you initially. But today, justice is served. The gavel came down. We won. Outside the courthouse, Diana held a brief press conference. I stood beside her, still trying to process what had just happened. Today's ruling affirms what we've known all along. Shelley Grant is a hero, not a criminal. She exposed massive fraud at great personal cost, and she's been vindicated. Reporters shouted questions. Diana answered a few, then I stepped to the microphone. I didn't do this for recognition. I did it because it was right. But I want to say something to other people in my position. If you see wrongdoing, report it. Yes, they'll come after you. Yes, it will be brutal. But you're not alone. People like Diana exist. Organizations exist to help. And the law, when it works correctly, does protect you. We walked to a cafe a few blocks away. My phone had been ringing nonstop. Messages from former coworkers. Some apologetic, some congratulatory. Amanda, I'm so sorry I didn't reach out. I was scared. I'm so proud of you. Tyler, the smirker, had sent nothing. Probably because he was realizing his career was over after publicly trashing a vindicated whistleblower. My mother called. Sweetheart, I saw the news. Are you okay? I'm okay, Mom. It's over. I'm so proud of you. Your father would be too. My dad had died when I was 15. He'd been an accountant, straight arrow, believed in doing things the right way. I wished he could have been here for this. At the cafe, Diana's phone rang. She answered, listened, her eyes widening. That was the SEC. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. They've arrested 3 more Meridian executives, including Janet Sterling. And here's the big news. She paused for effect. Under the Dodd-Frank Act, whistleblowers are entitled to 10 to 30% of recovered sanctions. The SEC has already recovered $32 million from Meridian. I did the math in my head. 10% would be $3.2 million. My brain couldn't quite process that number. But there's a complication. Of course there was. Meridian's board filed for bankruptcy protection this morning. They're claiming they can't pay the fines. If the bankruptcy goes through, the SEC's recovery gets tied up in bankruptcy court for years. You might get cents on the dollar or nothing at all. The high from winning the lawsuit evaporated. The bankruptcy hearing is next week. And guess who's representing Meridian? Preston. I laughed. It wasn't funny, but what else could I do? He's not going to give up, is he? People like Preston never do. But neither do people like us. Over the next week, Diana brought in reinforcements. A forensic accountant named Brian Torres joined our team. His job was to examine Meridian's bankruptcy filing. He worked fast. 3 days before the hearing, he came to Diana's office with his findings. These numbers don't make sense. Meridian claims they're insolvent, but look at these transfers. He showed us bank records. In the 3 days after the SEC investigation became public, Meridian had transferred $45 million to various offshore accounts. They claim these were legitimate business expenses and debt payments. But look at the recipients: shell companies, entities with no clear business purpose, companies incorporated in the Cayman Islands, Panama, Luxembourg. They're hiding assets, Diana said. They're looting the company before it collapses. Brian nodded. And look at this. These transfers were authorized by the CFO, Gerald Payne, but they were structured and timed according to legal advice. Someone told them exactly how to move this money. We found the emails, communications between Gerald and Preston's firm, detailed instructions on asset protection strategies, how to move money offshore, how to structure transactions to avoid scrutiny. Preston had helped them hide the money. This is criminal, I said. This is fraud on top of fraud. Diana smiled that dangerous smile again. Yes, it is. The bankruptcy hearing took place in a different courthouse, but the same players assembled. Preston, Diana, me, Judge Michael Brennan presiding. Preston presented Meridian's case with his usual polish. The company was devastated. Client relationships destroyed. Revenue collapsed. Unable to continue operations. They needed bankruptcy protection to wind down operations and pay what they could to creditors. He had financial statements showing insolvency, testimony from accountants, a sympathetic narrative about hundreds of innocent employees who'd lost their jobs because of the investigation. Your Honor, Meridian Financial made mistakes. Those mistakes are being addressed through the criminal justice system, but bankrupting the company doesn't serve justice. It just ensures that creditors, including the SEC, recover nothing. Judge Brennan listened carefully. Diana's cross-examination of Gerald Payne, the CFO, was surgical. Mr. Payne, 3 days after the SEC halted trading, Meridian transferred $8 million to a company called Cayman Holdings International. What was that payment for? Gerald shifted in his seat. Consulting services. What kind of consulting? Various advisory services? Business strategy? That sort of thing. And is it true that you personally own 40% of Cayman Holdings International? The courtroom went still. Gerald's face drained of color. That's not. I have various investment interests. Diana pulled out corporate registration documents. According to Cayman Islands Registry, you incorporated Cayman Holdings International 2 years ago. You own 40%. Your brother owns 30%. Craig Holloway owns 30%. She went through each transfer methodically. $13 million to a company owned by Janet Sterling's husband, $7 million to an entity controlled by Gerald's cousin, $11 million to a Luxembourg corporation with no apparent business purpose, but whose beneficial owners were Meridian executives. Your Honor, this isn't bankruptcy. This is theft. These executives are looting the company to avoid accountability. Preston was on his feet. Your Honor, these transfers were legitimate business transactions, properly approved and— Approved by you, Mr. Preston, Diana interrupted. We have emails showing you advised these transfers specifically to protect assets from potential judgments. She submitted the emails. Preston's detailed instructions on how to move money, which jurisdictions offered the best protection, how to structure transactions to minimize paper trails. Judge Brennan read through them, his expression darkening with each page. Mr. Preston, did you advise your clients to move assets offshore to avoid paying federal fines? Preston stood silent for a moment. Your Honor, I advised them on legitimate asset protection strategies that are common in corporate. That's bankruptcy fraud. Judge Brennan cut him off. And if you knowingly participated, that's conspiracy. I'm denying the bankruptcy petition immediately. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to federal prosecutors and the State Bar Association for investigation of your conduct." He gestured to the bailiff. "Mr. Preston is not to leave this courthouse until he's been interviewed by federal agents." Preston's face went white. Outside the courthouse, Diana and I stood on the steps. Media had assembled again, but I barely noticed them. "It's really over," I said. "The legal battles are over. The criminal prosecutions will take time. But yes, you won." 2 months later, I sat in my new apartment, small but nice, in a better neighborhood than before, paid for by my advance on the whistleblower reward while the final calculations were completed. The news played on my laptop. Theodore Preston had been indicted on multiple counts of conspiracy to commit bankruptcy fraud and obstruction of justice. 5 Meridian executives faced similar charges. Craig Holloway had already pled guilty and was cooperating with prosecutors. Meridian Financial had been liquidated. The SEC recovered $68 million total. My whistleblower reward calculation came through. 20%, $13.6 million. $13.6 million. I'd checked my bank balance 3 times that morning, just to confirm it was real. Diana called. "Congratulations, you're officially wealthy." I laughed. "I still can't process this number." "Live your life, Shelley. You earned it. And maybe help the next person?" I knew what she meant. Since the news coverage, I'd been contacted by 7 other whistleblowers from different companies, all facing retaliation, all terrified and alone. I'd been thinking about starting a foundation, using my reward to fund legal defense for whistleblowers who couldn't afford it, making sure no one else had to face what I faced without support. "I think I will," I said. That afternoon I met my mother for lunch at a nice restaurant in Chicago. Catherine looked proud, happy, relieved. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. I'm just glad it's over. What will you do now?" Good question. I had job offers. 3 law firms wanted to hire me as a consultant on whistleblower cases. The SEC had offered me a position in their enforcement division. A major consulting firm offered me double my old salary to join their compliance team. But I was thinking about something different, something that mattered more than salary or prestige. "I think I want to help people who are going through what I went through." My mother smiled. "Your father would be so proud." Later, walking through downtown Chicago, I passed the building that used to house Meridian's offices. The space was empty now, a for lease sign in the window. The company that had seemed so powerful, so untouchable, was gone. I thought about Jennifer Harris, the whistleblower who'd come before me, the woman who'd tried to expose fraud 3 years ago and been destroyed for it. Diana had been trying to track her down, with no success. Jennifer had disappeared completely, probably changed her name, started over somewhere far from Chicago. I made a mental note to keep looking for her, to let her know that her evidence had mattered, that she hadn't suffered for nothing. I thought about all the moments when I'd almost given up, sitting in my apartment that night, typing an acceptance of Preston's settlement offer, how close I'd come to letting them win. The what-ifs were endless. What if Diana hadn't shown up? What if the judge had ruled differently? What if I hadn't made that recording? But I had. And she did. And they did. People always ask me if it was worth it, if I'd do it again knowing what I know now. The answer is complicated. I lost my job. I lost my savings, at least temporarily. I lost friends. I was terrified every single day for months. There were moments when I thought they would destroy me completely, when the weight of their attacks felt unbearable. But here's what I learned. When you stand up for what's right, you're never really alone. Help comes from unexpected places. Diana appeared when I needed her most. The legal system, when it works correctly, does protect you. And sometimes, doing the right thing costs everything in the short term, but gives you something priceless in return. I got my money back, and then some. More money than I ever imagined having. But that's not the real reward. The real reward is being able to look at myself in the mirror, being able to sleep at night without the weight of complicity, knowing that somewhere out there, $30 million didn't get stolen from people who trusted a company with their life savings, knowing that executives who thought they were above the law learned otherwise, knowing that maybe, just maybe, the next person in my position will have an easier path because I walked it first. That's worth more than any dollar amount. If you ever find yourself where I was, scared and alone, staring at evidence of wrongdoing and wondering whether to speak up or stay quiet, remember this story. Remember that the people trying to silence you are counting on your fear. They're banking on you being too afraid to fight back. Don't give them that satisfaction. Speak up. Document everything. Find people like Diana who will stand with you. Know that the path will be brutal, but the alternative is worse. The alternative is living with the knowledge that you stayed silent while others were harmed, that you chose your own comfort over justice, that you let fear win. I chose differently. It cost me everything for a while, but in the end, I got everything back, and more importantly, I kept something they could never take, my integrity. That's my story. That's what happened when my side hustle turned out to be exposing $30 million in fraud. And you know what? I'd do it again. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between doing what's easy and doing what's right? What did you choose, and how did it turn out? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else who's facing that same impossible choice right now. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about courage and integrity and standing up for what's right, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding the strength to overcome them. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who might be facing their own impossible choice right now. Your share could be the encouragement they need to do the right thing. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are, whatever challenges you're facing, you find the courage to stand up for what's right. The world needs more people willing to speak truth, even when it's hard, even when it costs everything. Be brave. Be strong. And remember, you're never as alone as you think you are.